Hello, welcome to Kitchen Basics 101, where I teach you the bare bone basics as if you've never cooked a day in your life from the perspective of a mom. I'm gonna make a really basic meat, ground beef, tomato sauce, okay? We've made sauces on here before. We can make them lots of different ways. This is just a basic one you're supposed to start with a sofrito, which is carrots, onions, and celery. I don't like celery. I don't really like onions either, but I'm gonna put onions. And I just peeled and diced up my carrot and tasted it. My carrot doesn't taste good. So sometimes you adjust. So we're just gonna put onion in. But if you're making this at home, I want you to dice up a couple of carrots, dice up a little celery, dice up an onion, and that's how you're gonna start. That's a sofrito or a mirepoix. And you can actually buy that already pre-sliced up at the grocery store as well. You at home, you can just do a fine dice on your onion and that's totally perfectly fine. Me, I don't like onions. Like I really don't like them. So I'm going to put mine in a mini food processor and blend it with an inch of its life so that it sort of melts in the sauce. And just mine, I can leave it chunky because I'm just going to pop it in the food processor. I'm going to use about a half an onion. This is a pretty large onion. So I guess if it was a small onion, you could use the whole thing. And I'm just going to pulse it in my food processor. Completely pulverize my onion into nothing so that it will melt away into the sauce. But again, you can just put really small diced onion, carrot, celery. A lot of people ask me if this pan is going to stain, and we're about to find out because we're going to make our red sauce right here. So we're going to do a little olive oil in the pan. And you know I love graza. It's like my favorite. This squeeze bottle is life. Little olive oil. And we're just going to put a touch of butter for flavor. If you only have olive oil, you can totally do only olive oil. I don't know that I would recommend doing only butter just because butter has a tendency to burn if it's left on its own devices. So we've got a little butter and a little olive oil. And then you're going to put your mirepoix in. So you're going to put your onions, carrots, and celery into this mix. And I want you to think about what these components add to the dish. So onion is going to add delicious savoriness, but it's also going to add a lot of sweetness. Onion adds a lot of sweetness, which is going to add balance to our dish. Carrots add sweetness, and that celery is going to add that freshness, maybe sort of more of like a acidic citrus type element. So when you're leaving out elements, just know what you're leaving out. So if you're like, oh, I hate onion, even pulverized like this, I'm not going to use onion. A lot of my followers hate onions like I do. That's fine. Don't use onion. Make sure you put a lot of carrot. Do more carrot than you do celery because carrot's going to add back that sweetness that the onion had. If you're only using onion, like I am here, you're going to be okay. Onion has great complex flavor. Okay, even though I don't like onions on their own, it's going to melt up in here and you're never going to taste it. It's just going to become part of the dish. Just going to cook your onions for a couple of minutes, or your whole mirepoix for a couple of minutes. You can see that's dried out a little bit. And you know how much I love this frozen crushed garlic. You can also use fresh garlic. You can use garlic. You can use as much or as little as you like. I'm going to put each of these cubes as a clove. I'm going to put like, today I feel kind of garlicky. Let's do 4 cloves of garlic today. Feeling garlicky. Saute that for 30 seconds to a minute, just until you start to smell that garlicky flavor, because you don't want your garlic to burn. We're going to get our tomato paste out. I'm going to find a little bit of a empty spot here. I'm going to put like as much or as little as you want again, maybe a half a cup tomato paste. That's going to give you really intense tomato flavor. And then you're just going to want to fry up that tomato paste until it turns dark. See how it's like a bright red? What a lot of people say is this is cooking the tin out of it. That's what they say. So there is, just a little bit of like a metal flavor that comes when you put it in there. So you just want to cook it up for a minute until it becomes dark, like burgundy. I wish you could smell this. It smells amazing. Now I've got a leftover pound of ground beef here. I'm going to put some ground beef. Could you use Italian sausage? Sure. Could you use a mix of beef and Italian sausage? Sure. Could you use ground chicken, ground turkey? Yep, absolutely. This is ground beef, okay? Break up our ground beef and we're going to brown it off here in the pan. Get it nice and cooked through. Our ground beef is nice and brown. So now let's incorporate everything together here in the pan, the ground beef, our onions, our tomato paste, mix it all up. Every step of the way here, we're developing flavor. So we're going to put a little salt. And we're going to season with a little bit of pepper. stir that through to combine. So we've seasoned this layer. If you like your sauce chunky, you could put crushed tomatoes in here. If you like it more beefy, you could use beef stock. I like it nice and smooth, especially for what I'm going to use it for. So I'm going to use tomato puree here for my sauce. This is a beautiful imported tomato puree. So I'm going to combine that, and then I'm going to go put some water in here, about halfway, and I'm going to rinse out the remainder, but I'm also going to use it to add some water. Okay, I've filled this up about half, 3/4 of the way with water. I'm going to shake it and get as much as I can of the tomato off, and then I'm going to add that. No waste that way, and we've added water, which we're going to need because it's going to cook for a while. Now, if you need this sauce in a hurry, I would use much less water because then you can just cook it for 15-20 minutes and it would be ready to serve. Me personally, I just think it develops so much more flavor when it cooks for a long time. So I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and then I'm going to cover it just a little air hole, and I'm going to let it simmer on the stove on low heat for a couple of hours to really develop flavor. I'm going to season it before I let it simmer off. So I'm going to put like a tablespoon of sugar, white sugar. It's not going to make it sweet. It's just going to help balance the acidity of the tomatoes. I'm going to hit it again with a little bit of salt and pepper because what we did before was the meat. Now we got to get the tomato sauce that we've added. So we put a little salt and pepper. And once it's all done cooking, we'll taste again for seasoning just to make sure we have enough. But you definitely want each component to have its own layer of seasoning. I'm going to do a little salt and pepper. And I think I'm going to do some Italian seasoning, organic Italian seasoning. I'm just going to do like a good, healthy tablespoon of Italian seasoning. Stir this through. Brought my molten lava up to a boil, and now I'm going to turn it down to low. And these lids on these pans have a vent hole, so I don't have to do this, which is what I would normally have to do because it's going to vent out of there some steam. So I'm going to leave this, and I'm going to let this simmer for a couple hours on the stove. Okay, deliciousness is done. Looks incredible. So excited. I'm going to put this aside, and we're going to use it to make lasagna. So watch for that video. You could use this for spaghetti. You could use it for stuffed shells. You could use it for lasagna, ziti, whatever you want. Can't wait.